Man, it's been a whirlwind of a week, right? Just a ton of announcements, proclamations, and fact sheets coming out of the White House. If you felt like you were trying to drink from a fire hose, believe me, you are not alone. So, what we're going to do here is unpack this flurry of activity and really try to piece together the strategy behind it all. Okay, let's get into it.
On the surface, all the topics seemed kind of all over the place. We're talking semiconductors one minute, then environmental policy, healthcare, immigration. But when you actually dig into the official documents, the pieces really start to fit together. You start to see this clear worldview emerge, showing that behind all those separate headlines, a really core set of priorities was on full display.
And that's the big question, isn't it? I mean, how does a tariff on computer chips have anything to do with a statement on sanctuary cities or some new healthcare proposal? Well, that is exactly what this is all about, connecting those dots to reveal the strategic framework underneath it all.
To make sense of everything, we've broken this week's actions down into three main strategic pillars, and these are drawn straight from the source documents. We're going to look at the idea of an economic fortress, then the push to unleash industry, and finally a style of direct governance. After that, we'll pull it all together to see the unified strategy in action. So this first pillar is all about building up and protecting America's economic foundation, and it uses the really powerful justification of national security. The core idea here is that having a strong industrial base at home isn't just good for business. It's absolutely essential for the safety of the entire nation. So how is this strategy actually being put into motion? Well, the key is this piece of legislation right here, Section 232. It gives the legal muscle for some of the biggest moves this week by directly linking imports to national security. That gives the administration an incredibly powerful tool to work with. And they use that tool right away. A presidential proclamation just this week, which was based on a Commerce Department investigation, slapped a 25% tariff on certain advanced computing chips and their related products. And this isn't just a proposal. This is a direct, immediate action.
Now, what's so fascinating here is the why behind it all, laid out in the official proclamation. It paints this picture of extreme dependency. I mean, look at this. The U.S. uses about a quarter of all the world's semiconductors, but we only make about 10% of what we need. And since these chips are vital for literally everything, from our defense systems to the power grid, that gap is being defined as a major national security risk. And you can see this pattern repeating itself. This economic fortress strategy, it's not just about computer chips. The exact same logic is being applied to processed critical minerals. The materials that are the basic building blocks for defense tech, energy, and countless consumer goods. According to a White House fact sheet, the administration is telling its negotiators to work with allies to lock down these supply chains. The goals are pretty straightforward. Rely less on other nations, create more dependable sources, and ultimately make sure the U.S. can mine and process enough of this stuff on its own.
All right, let's move on to our second pillar, unleashing industry. This one kind of shifts the focus from defense to offense. So if the first pillar was about building walls to protect what we have, this one is all about tearing down walls, specifically the regulatory barriers that the administration says are holding back American production.
This quote from an op-ed by the CEQ chairman, it just perfectly sums up the whole mindset here. The argument is that the U.S. is getting left in the dust by competitors because of a slow, complicated permitting process that just stalls everything. The enemy here isn't another country, it's our own red tape. And the main target of this push is a law called NEPA. For decades, it's been the foundation for environmental reviews on big projects. But the position from the White House is that this law has been, and I'm quoting here, weaponized, turned from a tool for protecting the environment into a weapon against economic progress. So what's the supposed payoff for all this? Well, the White House is pointing straight at the American auto industry. They're holding up this sector as Exhibit A of what happens when you combine deregulation with the tariff protections we talked about in Pillar 1. And they came with the numbers to back it up. White House documents this week were celebrating the best year for vehicle sales since 2019. Billions in new investments from the big automakers, and the reversal of old fuel economy standards they called onerous. They also made the claim that tariffs have boosted manufacturing without actually raising car prices for you and me. The argument is that this whole strategy is translating directly into bigger paychecks. The administration put out data projecting some pretty significant real annual earnings gains for workers in these key blue-collar sectors. So they're framing these policies as a direct win for the American worker. Okay, the third and final pillar we're seeing this week is a really distinct approach to governing itself. This strategy has two main parts. First, bypassing what it sees as inefficient middlemen to deal directly with people. And second, directly taking on any political or institutional opposition. So first up, let's talk about bypassing the middleman. This quote from the Great Healthcare Plan announcement just captures the philosophy perfectly. Take the government money that's going to insurance companies now and just give it directly to individuals so they can buy their own care. This chart does a great job of showing the contrast, at least as the White House frames it. They call the current system a flagrant scam that's designed to make insurance companies rich. Their plan is presented as a way to empower you, the consumer, by putting money and choice directly into your hands, while also forcing hospitals to be transparent about their prices. Now for that second part, confrontation. This direct approach isn't just for policy ideas, we're also seeing it in how they enforce policy. This was made crystal clear in a document that addressed conflicts with state and local officials over federal immigration law. So to set the scene, the White House document actually quotes officials like Minnesota's Governor Tim Walz here, who are defending sanctuary policies. They argue that a local cop's job is to enforce local laws, not federal ones. So that's the opposing viewpoint. And the response is just as direct. Instead of trying to find some middle ground, the White House communication comes right out and places the blame for any resulting tension and violence from federal operations squarely on those local officials. It is a really clear example of confronting opposition head-on, rather than trying to work with it.
Okay, so now that we've walked through these three pillars, economic fortress, unleashing industry, and direct governance, let's pull it all back together and see how they form a single, coherent strategy that was on full display this past week. Here it is, all laid out. 1. You build an economic fortress using national security as the reason for tariffs, protecting key industries like semiconductors. 2. Inside that fortress, you unleash industry by slashing regulations to get the economy growing, like we saw with the auto sector. And 3, you make it all happen by governing directly, whether that means sending healthcare money straight to people or confronting officials who get in the way.
So from what looked like a week of disconnected announcements, a really clear and consistent picture of policy priorities and a governing philosophy has emerged. The administration has laid out its case for this strategy in its own words and documents. The big question that's left for all of us to watch isn't about the strategy itself, but about its long-term effects.